The arena floated high above the neutral planet, a massive circular structure suspended in orbit. Alien spectators filled every tier, their eyes gleaming with excitement. Some had forearms, some had no visible eyes at all, yet every species present shared one thing in common. They loved a good fight. Today's match promised more than just action. It promised entertainment, spectacle, and a chance to bet on who would fall first. Raxor, the one-armed champion, entered the arena slowly. His missing arm was covered by a simple band of cloth, but the absence did nothing to hide the scars of countless battles etched into his remaining muscles. Despite his reputation, the crowd laughed. The sight of a warrior with only one arm facing a fully armed opponent seemed absurd. The announcer's booming voice echoed across the arena. "Behold Raxor, the one-armed champion. Will he survive or will he fall like the others?" A roar of laughter filled the arena. Spectators pointed and jeered. A few bets were quickly placed on the opponent, a towering alien with 6 arms, each ending in sharp claws. He was a monster of strength and skill, a fighter who had never lost in his life. Raxor's eyes scanned the arena. He did not care for the laughter. He had fought countless battles and learned long ago that fear and mockery were weapons in themselves. If he let the crowd's voices influence him, he would lose before the fight even began. Instead, he focused on the opponent, whose shadow stretched across the platform like a looming mountain. The fight began with a low, vibrating hum, signaling the arena's energy field to activate. The two fighters faced each other, each measuring the other's speed, strength, and stamina. Raxor's opponent lunged first, his 6 arms moving at impossible speed, aiming to overwhelm the one-armed champion before he could react. Raxor dodged with surprising agility. His single arm moved like a whip, deflecting blows, striking in precise moments. The crowd laughed again, but this time it was tinged with unease. Despite his handicap, Raxor moved with a grace and skill that few could match. Minutes passed like hours. Each strike and dodge was a test of endurance. The 6-armed opponent was powerful but predictable. Raxor's movements were unpredictable. The crowd's laughter slowly turned into murmurs of surprise. Then the inevitable happened. Raxor was cornered. His opponent pressed him against the arena's edge, claws snapping inches from his body. A mighty swing sent Raxor stumbling back. The one-armed champion's breath came heavy. Sweat dripped down his face. For the first time, doubt flickered in his mind. The aliens cheered, thinking the fight was over.
"He will fall,"
one of them yelled. "A one-armed champion is nothing." Raxor gritted his teeth. He would not let himself fall so easily. He steadied his stance, breathing slowly, feeling the rhythm of his opponent's attacks, and then a voice rang out across the arena. "Let's make it fair," the voice said calmly, clearly cutting through the chaos like a blade. "I'll fight unarmed." The arena fell silent. The crowd froze, unsure if they heard correctly. Then the murmurs began, growing louder by the second. A human had stepped onto the arena floor. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Legends spoke of their courage, their strength, and their cleverness, but few had seen one in action. And here one stood, without armor, without weapons, offering fairness in the midst of a brutal battle. Raxor turned his head, eyes wide with surprise. You would fight instead?" he asked, not expecting such a gesture. The human nodded, calm and composed. His stance was relaxed but confident, as if he had trained his entire life for this moment. "Yes, if he fights with all he has, I will fight with nothing. Then it is fair." The opponent, 6-armed and muscular, tilted his head in confusion. "This is impossible," he said in a language no human could understand fully. Yet the intent was clear. He did not know how to react. The announcer's voice trembled slightly, overwhelmed by disbelief. Human, will face the champion?" The human smiled faintly and stepped closer to Raxor. "I will not harm you," he said. "I only wish to prove that fairness is possible even here." For the first time in the fight, Raxor felt hope. His body was exhausted, his energy waning. The presence of the human challenger shifted something inside him. He could feel that perhaps together they could turn the tide. The 6-armed opponent snarled and launched himself at Raxor, but the human did not flinch. He moved with perfect timing, avoiding the sweeping claws without a single weapon. The aliens in the crowd gasped. One had even fallen out of his seat in shock. Raxor watched, astonished. "How?" he whispered. The human's movements were unlike anything Raxor had ever seen. He did not rely on strength alone. He anticipated, he timed, he danced. Every step, every dodge, every slight shift of weight seemed to be part of a greater strategy. The crowd, who had laughed moments ago, now watched in silence, awe replacing mockery. The six-armed opponent tried to strike again, faster and more aggressively this time. But the human sidestepped, grabbed a loose piece of the arena floor and used it to trip one of the attacker's limbs. The alien stumbled, confusion spreading across its face. Raxer saw his chance. Using the brief distraction, he struck a precise blow with his single arm, sending the opponent off balance. The crowd's murmur turned into shouts of amazement. A one-armed champion and an unarmed human had turned the fight in mere seconds. Minutes passed, yet the human remained unharmed. His body moved as if guided by instinct, his mind calculating each attack before it arrived. Raxer, though tired, found renewed strength in the human's presence. Together, they were a combination no opponent had faced before. The audience was now on edge, their earlier laughter gone. They watched as the human dodged a particularly vicious strike and whispered to Raxer, "Now, strike his left arm when he swings high." Raxer nodded subtly. In perfect timing, he followed the advice, striking with precision. The opponent staggered. The crowd gasped. Whispers spread like wildfire. Humans were not fragile. They were clever, adaptable, and brave. Raxer and the human continued their silent coordination. The alien champion's attacks grew frantic. Confusion and panic began to show on his face. No longer was he fighting just an injured alien. Now he faced two opponents who were unpredictable, resourceful, and fearless. The arena's energy field pulsed, signaling the climax of the round. Yet the crowd barely noticed. They were too focused on the unarmed human and the one-armed champion. They had come expecting spectacle, and now they were witnessing something far greater: intelligence and courage surpassing brute strength. Finally, the six-armed opponent paused, breathing heavily, realizing that he was not facing ordinary challengers. His movement slowed, miscalculations appearing where before there had been flawless precision. Raxer seized the moment, striking again, while the human positioned himself perfectly to anticipate the opponent's next move. The announcer's voice shook with excitement. "Impossible. A one-armed champion is still standing. And the human. He moves without weapons and still survives." The crowd erupted, but not in laughter. For the first time, they cheered with respect, admiration, and even fear. They had underestimated humans, a mistake that could never be repeated. Raxor smiled faintly at the human. "You are remarkable," he said. The human nodded. "You are too. Together we are fair. Together we can survive." The six-armed opponent took a step back, confusion and rage clouding his features. He realized that strength alone would not win this fight. Strategy, intelligence, courage, these were just as powerful as claws, muscles, and weapons. The arena fell into an electric silence as the first part of the battle ended. The future of the fight, the eventual victor, and the respect for humanity were now all hanging in the balance. One thing was certain: the laughter had ended, and a new legend had begun. The arena trembled under the weight of thousands of spectators, their eyes glued to the central platform where the fight continued. The six-armed opponent, a towering figure of muscle and aggression, had paused for the briefest moment, startled by the human's calm courage. But hesitation was dangerous. One false move and the battle could turn against Raxer and the human. Raxer adjusted his stance, keeping his single arm ready. He wiped sweat from his brow, trying to catch his breath. Beside him, the human stood unarmed, seemingly relaxed, but every movement spoke of readiness. There was no panic in him, no fear, just awareness. Complete awareness. "Stay calm," the human whispered quietly to Raxer, just loud enough for him to hear. "Don't attack yet. Watch his left arm. He overuses it when he's tired." Raxer's eyes narrowed. He had fought countless opponents, but never one who moved without weapons and still seemed so precise. You really believe I can use this?" he asked, motioning to his single arm. The human smiled faintly. "You already have. Now let's finish this smartly." With that, the human stepped forward, his body flowing like water. Every movement was measured. He dodged one of the opponent's swings, then quickly sidestepped another, barely moving a step. The six-armed champion growled, claws slashing through the air, striking nothing but empty space. The crowd gasped again. The human was not only surviving, he was guiding the fight. Raxer took the cue. He moved with careful precision, striking when the human's timing showed an opening. For the first time, Raxer felt that he wasn't fighting alone. Together they formed a rhythm, a strange, silent cooperation between human and alien hand and mind. The opponent stumbled. He had faced dozens of opponents, many armed, many dangerous, but never had he encountered someone who could dodge attacks with nothing and still guide another fighter's movements so perfectly. Frustration crept into his eyes. He swung faster, harder, claws aiming for both the human and Raxer. The human ducked under a massive blow and whispered, "Now, bait him to the edge." Raxer hesitated. The edge of the arena was risky. One wrong step could send him plummeting into the energy field below. But he trusted the human. He moved slightly, drawing the opponent closer. The six-armed fighter lunged aggressively, aiming for Raxer's single arm, but the human moved between them, twisting and dodging, using only his body to distract the attacker. One arm swung too high, another too low. The opponent's timing faltered. Raxer struck. His blow landed perfectly, staggering the giant alien. A cheer erupted from the crowd. For the first time, they saw the one-armed champion not as a weak fighter, but as a clever, capable warrior. "Good," the human said calmly. "Keep moving. Don't let him recover. Make him guess." Raxer nodded, feeling a surge of energy. The human's presence wasn't just helpful, it inspired him. Every strike, every dodge, every movement felt part of a larger plan. The human was teaching him without words, guiding him through the chaos. The opponent roared, realizing that brute force alone would not win this battle. He tried to adapt, swinging his six arms in unpredictable patterns, but the human's guidance was perfect. Each time a claw came close to hitting Raxer, the human whispered a tiny adjustment. Shift left, step back, strike high. It was as if the human could see into the future, anticipating every move before it happened. The audience was on the edge of their seats. Their initial laughter had disappeared. Now they watched in awe as the human and the one-armed champion fought in harmony. The impossible was happening. An unarmed human guiding a wounded alien to stand against a formidable opponent. Minutes passed. Sweat dripped from Raxer's brow, his muscles screaming in protest, but he kept moving. The human never seemed tired. His eyes scanned constantly, noticing even the smallest changes in the opponent's stance, breathing, and movements. "Watch his right arm now," the human said softly. "He's getting predictable. He's relying too much on that limb." Raxer adjusted. He moved quickly, striking at the right moment. The six-armed champion stumbled again. Confusion and fear were now visible in his eyes. The aliens in the crowd whispered among themselves. Humans, they realized. Humans were different. "You are fast," Raxer said quietly during a brief pause. "How can someone unarmed move like this?" The human shrugged. "We have to be clever to survive. Strength alone isn't enough." Raxer thought about that. All his life he had relied on skill and strength. But the human's movements, the way he read the battle like a story, opened Raxer's mind to new possibilities. Perhaps strength was not everything. Perhaps strategy, observation, and courage mattered just as much. The six-armed opponent roared again and attacked with renewed fury, claws slicing through the air. But Raxer and the human were ready. Each dodge was calculated, each step precise. The human whispered instructions that Raxer followed instinctively. They moved as two different beings in perfect sync. Then the human saw the opening. Left leg. Trip him when he lunges. Raxer acted immediately, striking with the only arm he had. The opponent's leg gave way slightly. The human jumped in at just the right moment, using his own body to force the giant alien off balance. With a loud crash, the six-armed opponent fell to the ground, staggering but still standing. The arena erupted in cheers and gasps. For the first time, many spectators felt true awe. They had come to see spectacle, but now they witnessed intelligence, strategy, and courage in action. Humans were not weak. They were unpredictable, clever, and brave. Raxer glanced at the human. "Your timing, your knowledge, it's amazing. I could never have done this alone." The human nodded. "You don't fight alone. That is the lesson. Strength, yes, but also trust and cooperation." The opponent, realizing he had been outsmarted, roared in frustration. He tried again, swinging his arms in wide, unpredictable arcs, but it was too late. Raxer and the human had adapted to every attack. Every strike was blocked, every movement countered. The opponent was now on the defensive, his confidence shattered. The crowd watched, silent in amazement. What they had expected to be a simple battle of strength had turned into a display of human ingenuity and determination. The one-armed champion and the unarmed human had become legends in that moment, showing that victory did not rely solely on power. Raxor moved closer to the opponent. "This ends now," he said, his voice steady. "We fight with everything we have together." The human smiled faintly. "Yes, together." With that, the final phase of the round began. Raxor struck with all his might, using every ounce of skill and strategy he had. The human moved with incredible precision, guiding him, distracting the opponent, and exploiting every weakness. The six-armed champion tried to counter, but each movement was anticipated. Every swing was dodged, every charge blocked. Finally, the opponent faltered completely. His limbs were out of sync, his attacks clumsy and uncoordinated. He could no longer predict the combined movements of Raxor and the human. One more strike from Raxor, timed perfectly with the human's guidance, sent the giant alien crashing to the ground. The arena exploded in cheers. No longer was the one-armed champion a figure of ridicule. He was a hero. No longer was the human seen as weak. He was a master of strategy, courage, and timing. Together they had proven that strength alone was not enough to win a fight. Raxor lowered his arm, breathing heavily. "Thank you," he said to the human. "You have taught me more than any teacher ever could." The human shrugged. "You already had the strength. I only showed you how to use it with patience, timing, and trust." The announcer's voice shook with excitement. "Ladies and gentlemen, never before has such a battle been seen. A one-armed champion guided by a human has bested a six-armed monster. Witness the power of courage, intelligence, and teamwork." The crowd erupted, clapping, cheering, and shouting. The mockery of earlier moments had vanished. Respect and admiration filled the arena. Humans, it seemed, were far more than legends. They were a force to be reckoned with. Raxor looked at the human once more. "I have fought many battles. I have faced monsters, beasts, and armies, but none have shown me what you have shown today." The human smiled, looking out at the cheering crowd. "Strength is only part of the story. Bravery, intelligence, and heart make the rest. That is what truly makes a champion." As the sun of the neutral planet began to reflect off the floating arena, the two stood together, ready for whatever challenge came next. One-armed and unarmed, yet united. They had changed the rules of combat, and in doing so, they had changed the way the galaxy would see humanity forever. The arena had laughed at the one-armed champion, but now it had witnessed the rise of a new legend, a human and an alien, fighting together, proving that courage and cleverness could overcome any obstacle. The arena was alive with energy. Thousands of alien spectators leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the platform where the battle continued. The six-armed opponent, humiliated and frustrated, was beginning to show signs of exhaustion. Every strike he threw was slower, less precise, and increasingly wild. Raxor stood tall, breathing steadily. His single arm glistened with sweat, but he was no longer the one being hunted. He had learned to move with patience, to anticipate the attacks, and now, guided by the human, he was beginning to control the fight. Beside him, the human, Jace, moved with silent precision. He remained unarmed, yet his every step, every slight shift of weight seemed to tell Raxor exactly what to do. Jace's calm presence gave Raxor confidence he had never felt before. "You can do this," Jace whispered quietly. "Don't just defend. Force him to react to you." Raxor nodded. He had learned this lesson before in smaller battles, but now it had a new meaning. The one-armed champion was no longer fighting to survive. He was fighting to win, to prove that intelligence and courage could overcome raw strength. The opponent roared, swinging his six arms in a wide arc. Each strike could have crushed Raxor instantly, but the human's guidance allowed him to dodge with barely a movement. Step to the right, shift your weight, duck under. Raxor moved instinctively, each action flowing naturally from Jace's subtle cues. The audience was silent now, captivated. Aliens whispered among themselves. How can someone unarmed move like that?" one exclaimed. "And that one-armed alien, he fights with skill we've never seen." Raxor took advantage of the opponent's momentary confusion. He struck with precise force, targeting the alien's legs to unbalance him. Jace moved alongside him, distracting the opponent with feints and sudden shifts. Every time the six-armed fighter thought he had a clear shot, the human was there to block, evade, or mislead him. "Now," Jace said, a note of urgency in his voice. Raxor lunged forward, striking with all his remaining strength. The six-armed opponent stumbled, nearly losing his balance. The crowd gasped, their excitement building into something almost electric. They had come to see a spectacle, a fight of strength. Yet now they witnessed strategy, intelligence, and courage taking center stage. "You're doing well," Jace said calmly. "Keep forcing him to guess. Don't let him recover." Raxer nodded, feeling a surge of energy. The human's words were more than guidance. They were a reminder that victory did not come from raw power alone. Every move, every dodge, every strike was part of a larger plan. They were teaching the opponent a lesson. Humans and aliens who fight together could defy expectations. The opponent roared again, swinging his claws with renewed fury. He had never been challenged like this before. In his mind, strength had always been enough. But these two, one with only one arm and another unarmed, were proving that strength alone was not enough to win. Jace noticed a pattern. He favors his right arm when he's tired. Use it. Force him to overextend. Raxer moved quickly, feinting a strike to his left before targeting the opponent's extended right arm. The giant alien faltered, his claws missing their mark. Jace moved into position, using his own body as a distraction. The opponent stumbled, caught off guard by the unarmed human who moved as if he were part of the fight itself. The arena erupted in cheers. Aliens who had once laughed were now on their feet, shouting in awe. The human and the one-armed champion had turned the fight upside down. It was no longer about who was stronger. It was about who was smarter, faster, and more adaptable. Raxer felt his confidence grow. He was learning from the human, yes, but he was also discovering something within himself. His missing arm, once a symbol of weakness, no longer defined him. Strength came in many forms: strategy, timing, courage, and trust. The opponent, desperate now, tried to attack both of them at once. Six arms swung wildly, each strike aimed to overwhelm. But Raxer and Jace moved in harmony, dodging, feinting, and striking with precision. The six-armed fighter's movements became frantic, his confidence evaporating with every missed attack. "Left side," Jace whispered urgently. "Force him to overcommit." Raxer followed the advice. He shifted his stance, striking a quick blow to the opponent's side while the human drew his attention in another direction. The giant alien staggered, his balance faltering. The crowd gasped, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Minutes passed, yet the human showed no signs of fatigue. His calm focus never wavered. He moved with the grace of a dancer, guiding Raxer and keeping the opponent off balance. The one-armed champion realized that humans were not fragile. They were adaptable, clever, and fearless. Raxer struck again, landing a blow that sent the opponent sprawling backward. Jace moved forward, positioning himself perfectly to block any counterattack. Together, they pushed the giant alien toward the edge of the arena platform. "Keep him there," Jace said calmly. "Don't let him recover." The opponent tried to resist, swinging his arms in desperation, but every move was anticipated. He stumbled, teetering dangerously close to the platform's edge. The arena spectators held their breath. No one had expected such skill from a one-armed alien and an unarmed human. Raxer moved in closer, feeling a rush of adrenaline. This was their moment. "We finish this together," he said. The human nodded. Together. They attacked in perfect synchronization. Raxer struck the opponent's legs while the human distracted him with precise movements. The giant alien faltered completely, losing balance. One final push from Raxer, combined with a well-timed sidestep from Jace, sent the six-armed champion crashing to the ground. The arena erupted. Cheers, gasps, and applause filled the air. The crowd had witnessed something extraordinary. A one-armed champion standing victorious, guided by an unarmed human. The mockery of earlier moments had vanished, replaced by admiration and respect. Raxer lowered his arm, breathing heavily but smiling. "You have shown me more than I imagined possible," he said to the human. Jace shrugged modestly. "You had the strength. I only helped you see how to use it fully. Courage, timing, and teamwork. That is what matters." The opponent, now humbled and defeated, retreated to the edge of the arena. His arrogance was gone, replaced by a quiet understanding of what he had faced. Strength alone had not been enough. Intelligence, strategy, and courage had prevailed. The announcer's voice shook with excitement. Never before has such a battle been seen. A one-armed champion, guided by a human, has bested a six-armed monster. Witness the power of teamwork, courage, and intelligence. The crowd roared, no longer mocking. The one-armed champion and the human had earned the respect of thousands of species across the galaxy. Raxer looked at Jace, gratitude shining in his eyes. I have fought countless battles. I have faced warriors stronger than me, creatures faster than me. But never have I seen such courage and skill. Jace smiled. Strength is only part of what makes a fighter. The mind, the heart, and the willingness to face fear, that is what truly matters. As the sun of the neutral planet reflected off the arena, the two stood together, victorious but aware that challenges were still ahead. They had proven themselves, but the galaxy was wide, and there would always be new opponents, new battles, and new tests of courage and intelligence. The arena had once laughed at the one-armed champion. Now it had witnessed a new legend, a human and an alien, fighting together, showing that courage, strategy, and teamwork could triumph over even the most powerful foes. Raxor raised his single arm, not in anger, but in respect. Together, he said simply. Together, Jace echoed. The crowd erupted again, this time in pure admiration. The story of the one-armed champion and the unarmed human would be told across the galaxy, inspiring others to understand that true strength came not from muscle alone, but from heart, mind, and courage combined. And as they stood side by side, ready for whatever came next, a new chapter of human and alien collaboration had begun, a story of hope, intelligence, and heroism that no laughter could ever erase. The arena was silent for a moment. The tension, thick as the dust from the previous clash, settled. Raxer, the one-armed champion, and Jace, the unarmed human, stood side by side, breathing heavily but alert. The six-armed opponent had retreated, to the far edge of the platform, glaring at them with frustration and disbelief. His arrogance was gone, replaced by a grudging respect, but he was far from defeated in spirit. This is it, Raxer whispered, gripping the edge of the platform with his single hand. The final moment. We must finish this properly. Jace nodded calmly. Yes, but remember, we don't just fight to win. We fight to show them what courage and intelligence mean. Stay focused, trust each other, and move as one. The audience, thousands strong and spanning multiple species, watched with bated breath. Moments ago they had laughed at Raxer's missing arm. They had doubted the human's abilities. Now they waited in awe to see the climax of a battle that had already defied expectations. The six-armed opponent let out a low growl, flexing each powerful limb. He charged suddenly, faster than before, aiming to overwhelm Raxer and Jace in one final desperate strike. The platform shook beneath his weight. Jace moved first. Unarmed, he dodged with a fluid grace that made the attack seem slow, almost clumsy. His body shifted in ways that made the opponent misjudge every swing. Raxer followed, stepping carefully, timing his movements to complement the human's precise guidance. Now, Jace whispered. Force him to use his center arm. He overuses it when he's tired. Raxer feinted to the left, drawing the opponent's attention to that side. The six-armed fighter swung wildly with his center arm, miscalculating the angle. In the brief moment of imbalance, Raxer struck with his single arm, hitting just below the elbow. The opponent stumbled backward, claws scraping the edge of the platform. The crowd erupted. Aliens who had mocked the one-armed champion were now on their feet, shouting in amazement. The humans and Raxer had not only survived, they were dominating. Jace moved closer to Raxer, his eyes scanning the opponent's every twitch. He's losing focus. Use it. Push him toward the edge, carefully but decisively. Raxer nodded, feeling a surge of renewed energy. He had learned from countless battles that timing, patience, and observation mattered as much as strength. With Jace guiding him, he felt unstoppable. They were not two individuals fighting. They were a single force synchronized in purpose. The opponent roared, attempting a final attack. He swung six arms in a chaotic flurry, aiming to catch both challengers off guard. But Jace moved like water, weaving between the swings, subtly guiding the six-armed fighter's momentum while Raxer took advantage of every opening. Left side now, Jace called, urgency in his voice. Raxer struck again, hitting the opponent's left arm. The giant alien staggered, nearly losing his balance. Jace used the distraction to feint, drawing the opponent further toward the edge. The crowd gasped. The impossible was unfolding. A one-armed alien and an unarmed human were controlling the battlefield against a creature that had seemed unstoppable. Minutes passed, each strike, dodge, and shift carefully calculated. The six-armed fighter was now clearly exhausted. His swings were slower, less coordinated. He was confused, unable to predict the combined movements of Raxor and the human. Jace whispered, "One final move. Be ready." Raxor's eyes met the human's. "I trust you." "And I trust you," Jace replied. They moved as one. Raxor feinted to the right, forcing the opponent to shift his weight. Jace moved to the left, drawing attention and disrupting balance. In perfect timing, Raxor struck the final blow, targeting a vulnerable spot just below the opponent's center of mass. The six-armed fighter stumbled, unable to recover, and fell to his knees at the edge of the platform. The arena erupted in a mixture of cheers, gasps, and applause. For the first time, laughter was completely gone. Every spectator, regardless of species, felt a deep respect for what had just occurred. They had witnessed courage, intelligence, and teamwork triumph over brute strength. The opponent looked up at them, breathing heavily, eyes filled with a newfound respect. "You are incredible," he said, his voice low but sincere. "I underestimated you. Strength alone is not enough." Raxor extended his single arm to help the opponent rise. "Strength is only part of what matters," he said. "Courage, intelligence, and teamwork are just as important." Jace nodded. "Every fighter has limits, but anyone can exceed them with focus, strategy, and heart. That is the true measure of strength." The announcer's voice trembled with excitement, echoing across the arena. "Ladies and gentlemen, witness history. A one-armed champion and an unarmed human have bested the strongest fighter in the galaxy. Courage, intelligence, and teamwork triumph today." The audience erupted in applause. Some species raised multiple limbs in celebration. Others shouted their approval in languages never before heard by humans. The arena, which had once mocked the one-armed champion, now recognized him and the human as heroes. Raxor turned to Jace. "I have fought countless battles, faced warriors stronger and faster than me, but never have I seen such courage and skill. You are remarkable." Jace smiled humbly. "We all have our strengths. You showed me yours today. Together we've proven that anyone can rise above challenges, no matter their limitations." The six-armed opponent, now fully aware of his defeat, bowed slightly. "I have fought many battles, yet I have never faced an enemy like you two. I will remember this fight for the rest of my life." The crowd cheered even louder. Stories of this battle would spread across galaxies. A legend of a human and a one-armed alien standing together against impossible odds. Young fighters would be inspired, species would rethink their assumptions about strength, and humans would earn respect unlike ever before. Raxor and Jace stood together at the center of the arena, looking out at the crowd. For the first time, they felt the full weight of admiration and respect. The laughter that had once filled the arena was replaced with awe. "Today we prove something more than skill or strength," Jace said quietly, speaking to both Raxor and the crowd. "We proved that courage, intelligence, and teamwork can overcome any challenge. That is the true power of humanity." Raxor nodded. "And it is a lesson for all of us. Strength alone does not define a champion. Heart, mind, and courage do." The crowd erupted again, louder than ever. Aliens who had once doubted the human now bowed in respect. The one-armed champion had earned new admiration, and the unarmed human had changed the way everyone would view humans across the galaxy. The arena announcer could barely contain his excitement. "History has been made today. The impossible has been achieved. The one-armed champion, guided by a human, has triumphed. Remember this day, for it will be told for generations." As the cheers continued, Raxor turned to Jace, a smile of genuine gratitude on his face. "You've shown me more than I ever imagined. Humans are truly remarkable." Jace shook his head slightly, smiling. "No, you've shown them. Together we've shown everyone. Strength matters, yes, but so does courage, intelligence, and heart. That is what makes us strong." The sun of the neutral planet reflected off the floating arena, casting long shadows as the two champions stood together. Their victory was not just a win in combat, it was a lesson to the galaxy. The story of the one-armed champion and the unarmed human would be told for generations, inspiring countless beings to believe in intelligence, courage, and unity. Raxor raised his single arm once more, not in defiance, but in respect. "Together," he said simply. "Together," Jace echoed. And with that, the arena, once filled with laughter, stood in awe. A legend had been born, one that would endure across planets, stars, and galaxies. Humanity had proven its strength not in weapons or numbers, but in courage, heart, and the power of working together. The battle was over, but the story had just begun. Across the galaxy, whispers spread of the human who fought unarmed and the one-armed champion who refused to surrender. Their courage would inspire countless others. And in that moment, all who witnessed it knew one thing for certain. Humans, with their wit, bravery, and heart, were forces to be reckoned with, capable of achieving the impossible. The arena's gates closed, the spectators slowly leaving, still talking in excited tones, but in the hearts of many, a new understanding had taken root. Strength alone could no longer define a champion, and somewhere, in the vastness of space, humans and their allies would continue to show that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome any challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed.